All right, the most hated airline in the world. Why? Like Ryanair, why?
RYANAIR is the largest airline in Europe, flying over 180 million passengers. RYANAIR is the largest airline in Europe,
Yes.
flying over 180
Ryanair.
million passengers every year. And unlike
Including
most
me.
airlines, RYANAIR offers flights for as little as $9.99. But for every passenger who loves RYANAIR's
Not always, but they are cheap.
cheap tickets, there's another one who has sworn never to fly with them again. RYANAIR is infamous for charging ridiculous hidden fees, taking passengers to unexpected destinations, and changing their schedules at the very last minute. And if you head to their
Overreacting.
social media accounts, you'll find that instead of helping out, RYANAIR often just trolls their passengers, quite literally making memes out of their complaints. There are countless horror stories about flying RYANAIR, but here's where things get weird. Behind the scenes, everything RYANAIR does is actually genius.
Yeah.
Even with such low prices, they have one of the highest profit margins in the entire airline industry.
They are the young
RYANAIR's journey from a
industry of
single
flying
plane
in
to
cheap.
Europe's largest airline
It's airlines
is
for
fascinating.
young
So,
people.
strap yourself in, because the story of RYANAIR
But not
is gonna
only
be
young
a
people
wild
flying
ride.
there, but
Let me explain something to you.
young people love these airlines. Me too. I'm not so young, but you know,
I set the rules and you follow them blindly.
genius. The most controversial. I have to learn this word. Word.
Tony Ryan began RYANAIR in
Oh, Tony
1984, starting off with just a single aircraft flying from Ireland to
No
London.
way, just one.
However, as they tried to expand and offer more routes, the business started losing more and more money. So Tony asked his personal assistant,
Business of
Michael
one
O'Leary,
plane.
to take a look at the business. And what he found was a mess of unmerciful proportions. Michael's first assessment was that RYANAIR should simply shut down, because it was losing millions every year. But Tony said that wasn't an option. So Michael's next assessment was that RYANAIR needed to completely restructure itself and cut down their costs by whatever means necessary. Tony trusted Michael, so he asked him to help make RYANAIR profitable. They agreed a deal where instead of a salary, Michael would get 25% of any profits RYANAIR made over $2 million, and Michael would lead the airline as chief executive.
Good
Given
deal.
that RYANAIR was losing millions a year, Tony doubted whether Michael would make any money at all from this deal. However, Michael realized that trying to offer a better service than the more established airlines was not the right option. And so the first thing Michael did was head over to America to check out Southwest Airlines, a company that was charging as little as $10 for some of their flights. Michael wanted to study their process
How
and
the
figure
hell
out
are they
how
do
they were
that?
offering fares so cheaply. And he was hugely impressed with what he saw.
Maybe the fuel made out of like recycle French fries oil from McDonald's or something.
Michael compared Southwest's operations to a McDonald's. Every process, from checking the plane before a flight, to boarding the passengers, to the in-flight services, was optimized to increase efficiency and decrease operating costs. When he returned from the US, Michael was inspired and vowed he was going to turn RYANAIR into an ultra low-cost airline that offered customers rock-bottom prices. However, many questioned, with rock-bottom prices, how was RYANAIR ever going to turn a profit?
Luggage, insurance, luggage, seat selection, luggage, seat selection, and luggage.
Well, Michael had a plan for that. And the best way to see it in action is for us to take a flight with RYANAIR.
Oh, sorry. And take all the seats and squeeze them. Squeeze all the people like tiny sardines. And sell stuff on the, on the plane, like food and stuff like that. A lot of money. It's like 300 people sitting in a plane. A lot of people buying stuff. That's a lot of money.
As with all flights, it starts when a customer buys a ticket. But you can only buy RYANAIR tickets online. That way, the process is streamlined and they cut out travel agencies taking a commission.
Yeah.
RYANAIR's tickets are especially cheap. But that's because customers are really only paying for a random seat on the plane. If you want to choose a seat so you can sit next to who you're traveling with, that's extra. And
But you can just buy the seat and then, most people are not buying seats. A lot of people not buying seats. And then there is the intense moment when you're waiting for the doors to be shut and then you're looking back. Somebody want to switch. Where's my partner? Okay, switch with somebody, and then sometimes you can walk it out. You don't have to buy a seat.
If you want to take any luggage other than a backpack, that's extra too. And these extra charges often amount to
Also for the baggage, you can take a backpack. You're going to you're going to a place that is really cold. Wear a lot of t-shirts on you and extra pants. Or make a pillow or something from your clothes. I saw it on TikTok.
more than the ticket itself. Ryanair saves tons of money this way because most governments tax airlines on the airfare, but not the add-ons. Not just that, it means Ryanair are always going to be at the top of price comparison searches, as they're sorted based on ticket price, not including the extra hidden costs. Now, when you're booking your tickets, make sure you don't fill in any of your details incorrectly, as Ryanair can sometimes charge over €100 to make any changes. Articles have pointed out that it is cheaper to leave.
And think about it. Take like statistics of 300 people. Maybe like 10 or 20%, like 10% gonna get it wrong. Something. Date, time, name, spelling, something.
Legally change your name and passport than to change names on Ryanair tickets. When you arrive at the airport, Ryanair saves on staff costs too by not having any check-in desks, and they'll charge a hefty fee to anyone that forgets to check in online. After this, the passengers head to the gate, which might be inconveniently far away. Airports charge airlines less for using certain gates, and Ryanair always takes the cheapest ones.
All of those stuff are not
Next,
too bad.
the passengers head onto the plane. But instead of using a sky bridge, Ryanair makes them take a bus and walk up the stairs.
Nobody
because
cares
again,
about that.
It's cheaper. Once inside, the passengers will see that there's no first class on Ryanair, because having only one type of seat streamlines the cleanup process
Also, the
after
planes
the flight.
are not that
You'll
bad.
also notice that the plane is absolutely crammed with passengers. Ryanair uses mostly Boeing 737s, which typically seat around 170 passengers, but Ryanair stuff around 200 in the same space, the max that regulations allow. This means you won't have much
200
legroom,
people, not
and to make
300
things
people.
worse, the seats can't be reclined. That's because these are the cheapest seats for Ryanair to buy and maintain.
I made a mistake before. It's not 200 people, 300 they said, it's 200 people. And it's not that bad, and most airlines today, a lot of airlines are doing the same stuff, and Ryanair still very low priced compared with EasyJet too, also really low price. A lot of stuff that he's saying here on the videos, most of the airlines, it feels like they are doing the same thing.
It also means some of their window seats don't have a window at all. In the case of seat 11A, this is what you're getting. Next up, the flight attendants give a safety brief. But instead of your typical safety brochure, the information is printed on the back of the seat's headrest.
So what?
This way, there's no need for pockets
Because people are stealing that.
on the back of the seats, which makes cleaning up way faster. And usually it's the flight attendants who do the cleaning themselves, which dramatically reduces Ryanair's staff bill.
Our people are our most important asset. No, they're our biggest expense.
Then the pilot introduces himself over the speakers, but they're probably not a Ryanair employee. Instead of hiring pilots the traditional way, Ryanair makes them start their own companies in Ireland and then hires them as contractors.
Wow.
This way, they can avoid paying for health insurance or severance.
Wow.
Once the plane takes off, passengers will notice that there's no in-flight internet or screens to watch movies on. That's an unnecessary cost. And if you want any food mid-flight, or even just a glass of water, you're
We're living in an era of download stuff on Netflix to your phone. Nobody using those screens anymore.
gonna have to pay. Nothing on the plane is free. So Ryanair turns what is an expense for other airlines into another revenue stream. You won't be waiting long though. The average Ryanair flight is just over 2 hours. This is optimal for fuel efficiency, and it also means a single plane can make upwards of 6 trips every day, which drives up Ryanair's revenue. But when the passengers land, they might find they're further away from their destination than they hoped. Ryanair usually
It's not always like that. It's really not always like that. It depends on the situation, on the destination. I know this video is trying to make Ryanair seems like a terrible company, but they are not too bad. They're really decent, really, and it's not like that. You're not going. Yeah, there are like I don't know, if you're going to London, they got like 7 airports, so maybe they throw you not in like Luton or I don't know where, they throw you somewhere farther away. But if you're going to Prague, there is only one airport. Other places, it's not always like that.
usually flies to secondary airports outside big cities, as they charge much lower landing and takeoff fees. For example, the Ryanair ticket may say London, but instead of flying to one of the main airports like Heathrow, Ryanair may go to Luton, which is not even in London. Or in Barcelona, Ryanair uses
I got the airport's name wrong, but I was close.
an airport that's around 50 miles away from the city and requires an hour-and-a-half bus ride.
Okay, this is
It's
terrible.
less convenient for customers, but Ryanair gets much bigger discounts from the airports. And many of these smaller airports become dependent on Ryanair for business, and so they give them incredible prices. Or another way Ryanair gets discounts from airports is they'll just fly at the least popular times. Finally, once the passengers have left, Ryanair begins unloading the plane, cleaning it, refueling it, and rotating the crew. This takes most airlines ages, but Ryanair has streamlined all these systems, so their planes are typically on the ground for just 30 minutes between flights. And so that's a typical Ryanair flight, and it's clear their operations are incredibly efficient to cut costs in every way possible. However, this sometimes means doing things that may seem counterintuitive. For example, you may think another way for Ryanair to lower their costs would be to buy older planes for lower prices, but in reality, they do the exact opposite. Ryanair always buys the newest planes available, because long term, they waste the least amount of fuel, which is one of the largest expenses for an airline. In fact, Ryanair is notorious for making massive orders of only Boeing 737s. By buying a single model in bulk, they can negotiate a lower average price per plane, and then streamline their whole operation further, because by
I'm imagining like the guy from Ryanair is going to Boeing and telling him like, hey, if I'm gonna get like 10 planes, you're gonna get me the 11th plane for free? He's like,
only using one kind of plane, it means they only have to buy one kind of seat and one kind of fuel. They only have to train one kind of crew on one kind of process. These ultra efficient strategies are why Ryanair can charge less than €30 for their average flight, and still clear an outrageous profit margin of around 35% sometimes, whilst most European airlines are lucky to reach 6%, and the global average was barely 2.7%.
Everybody looks at Ryanair and they're all looking at it. There's one secret. There's, they bought planes cheaply, or they just treat people badly, or they do. Every single line of our operation is smarter, lower cost, or more efficient than almost every other line.
Some other airlines have now copied some of these strategies after seeing how well they worked, but very few airlines take things as far as Ryanair. However, whilst these ruthless cost-cutting strategies might be brilliant in a business sense, they have made Ryanair one of the most hated airlines in the world. And
I don't hate them, seriously, they're not that
Ryanair's
bad.
response to this is far from ordinary.
It's funny,
Before
it's
we
not
get to
bad.
the next chapter, it's time to answer a question I get a lot. How do I make these videos? Well, a big part of that is down to today's sponsor, Storyblocks. Storyblocks.com/magnate.
Chapter 3, let's
Michael
go.
O'Leary, Ryanair's CEO, has often made the news for some of his wild ideas about how Ryanair could cut costs even further. He said he wanted to charge passengers to use the bathroom, remove toilets completely to add more seats, introduce a fat tax, and even sell standing tickets. He pointed out these measures would allow Ryanair to offer cheaper flights, which is ultimately what consumers want. And in some cases, there may be some logic to it.
It would make perfect sense to me to charge for toilet access. One, it would reduce the number of people who are bothering other passengers getting up and down going to the toilet on board.
There is something.
Two, I think we'd have fewer passengers using the toilet.
Makes sense.
And we'd have less people queuing around the toilets on board the aircraft.
None of these ideas have actually happened though, and
It does make sense what he just said. It does make sense.
Michael later said he'd often just say things they had no intention of actually doing to help generate free marketing.
And we generated huge amounts of free publicity. Why? Because we'd no money for advertising, we'd no money for PR. So you needed some kind of loudmouth Paddy to be out there saying outrageous things like charging for toilets, and we're taking out the seats in the standing room only. None of which we actually planned to do, but it generated acres and acres of free publicity.
There is no such thing as bad advertising.
Ryanair saved a fortune on marketing by simply having Michael do interviews and say outlandish things to get headlines, which always led to more people checking out Ryanair's website and buying tickets. For example, when he was questioned why passengers are charged €20 just to print their boarding passes at the airport, Michael replied, "Well, I think they should pay €60 for being so stupid."
Oh.
He also said, "If drink sales are falling off, we get the pilots to engineer a bit of turbulence. That usually spikes drink sales." Another way Michael helped Ryanair get free marketing was with creative promotions designed to get maximum attention.
We used one of our first best ones was we did this Valentine's Day promotion, which was 69 for 2.
However, not everyone sees the funny side. You'll find plenty of Ryanair horror stories and tens of thousands of one-star reviews. Some newspapers started having an entire column dedicated to Ryanair complaints as there were so many. Like a woman who was charged €300 for Ryanair to print out her boarding pass.
No way, 300.
But Michael has openly stated he feels customers paying cheap airfares have no right to complain when things go wrong. He said, "We don't want to hear your sob stories. What part of no refund don't you understand?" Another example was when hundreds of passengers were forced to spend the night at the airport after their flight was cancelled, and many asked if Ryanair would provide accommodation.
There is a law that after 8 hours, every company must, either give their money back or take care of them. I don't know, but they're into it. They have to do something.
Michael said, "Absolutely not. You booked a flight, not a hotel." One of their most controversial policies was forcing the disabled to pay up to €25 for the use of a wheelchair. One lady said, "Despite booking wheelchair assistance, I had to ask a fellow passenger to push me to the departure gate. And upon my return, I sat for an hour waiting for assistance on the plane, getting colder and colder." Almost any other company would offer goodwill gestures when things like this happen. But instead, Ryanair takes a different approach. When you go to Ryanair's social media, you'll find that instead of helping out, they're making memes from their passengers' complaints. For example, when passengers complain they paid for a seat but didn't get a window, Ryanair simply responds, "Read that again but slowly. You paid for a seat." Another asked them where their window was, and Ryanair replied, "Pay for the baggage you've stored under your jumper, and then we can talk." One of their most viral posts was when a customer
Pay for the baggage you store under your
complained about jumper, and then we can talk. One of their most viral posts was when a customer complained about the very narrow stairs Ryanair used, and said, "I'll bring my own stairs next time." But Ryanair responded, "Bring your own plane next time." Some people questioned, should a company be responding this way instead of apologizing? But another said, they charged extra for everything except Twitter roasts. No regular airline would ever do this, but in Ryanair's case, it's actually a genius strategy. Ryanair has millions of followers, and their troll posts regularly go viral, which directly leads to more ticket sales. They've embraced their reputation of being stingy.
It's really nice and everything, but imagine all companies were like that. Oh my god.
As it means everyone thinks of them as the low-cost airline. And as a result of all these strategies, Ryanair carries far more passengers than any other airline in Europe. Their typical airfare goes for less than €30, and they've sold flights for as little as $4.99. They might not treat you like royalty, but they're pretty honest about what they are. Love them or hate them, they've given people the option to fly all over Europe at prices that are often cheaper than train tickets. So there's no doubt they've made air travel affordable for millions of people. However, remember how Michael compared their efficiency to McDonald's? Well, that's because McDonald's pioneered something called the speedy service system.
Yeah, we all saw the movie.
Genius. Just click this video now to see what I mean.
We all saw the movie, what was it, The Creator? The Dictator? Movie about McDonald's.